Hello, recently I stumbled upon this BadEmpanada video about Ukraine. Generally speaking, BadEmpanada is much more far left than me, although that term is kind of very unprecise because there are at least three different dimensions that left and right could mean. It could mean something economical, the culture war. Then there's also communism, but okay, let us first hear him out. Why is he against Ukraine now? And then I'll explain why his reasons actually make no sense. Okay, let us start.
In that capacity, it's been like a compounding thing, a combination of factors, like Zelensky being a massive Zionist constantly, to the point that he once said in 2022 that he envisions Ukraine post-war as being a big Israel. And now the Ukrainian president has slammed Israel over importing grain. You know, he didn't slam Israel over committing genocide, but he did slam Israel and prepare sanctions against individuals involved in grain shipments from Ukraine. Like that fucking matters to them. You're Ukraine, your sanctions don't matter because they are shipping grain from Russia. This is the line for them. It's not the genocide, it's grain theft. Once you're affected, suddenly you start caring, right? But it's not just that. These things are like cringe, but the worst thing that I've seen that really pushed me over the edge.
Okay, let's just stop here for a moment. So you could argue that it is hypocritical to care more about something that affects you than about a genocide that doesn't affect you, but that's literally how every state in the world operates. Do you think that people in India care more about Chinese imperialism or about Russia-Ukraine war? Do you think that people in the Middle East care more about the war between Israel and Iran or about the territorial integrity of Ukraine? The answer is obvious. It's the same reason I would care more about somebody burning down my house than about a genocide happening in a different part of the world that doesn't affect me. So yeah, this hypocrisy is present in every single nation state. And in fact, nation states, most of them, by their own constitution, have an obligation to put their interest first, the interest of their own people. And okay, let's also just pause here for a moment. So Israel is one of the few countries in the world buying Russian grain, grain that Russia stole from Ukraine. A very controversial move. And if you are coming from the perspective of BadEmpanada, the guy that hates Israel, that sees it as probably the worst state in the world right now, then what does it mean if one of the few countries willing to buy your grain is Israel? So this could very easily be used as an argument against Russia, actually, if you are very anti-Israel, which BadEmpanada actually is. But okay, let us continue.
Ukraine shifting its position on the Cuban embargo. After decades upon decades of voting against the Cuban embargo, Ukraine joined Israel, the USA, Argentina, of course, because of Milei, and like all these other nations that are just like sucking up to the USA, to vote for keeping the embargo, the US embargo on Cuba. And the representative of Ukraine to the UN justified this by saying the move was not directed against the Cuban people, but against the inaction of the Cuban government regarding the recruitment of its citizens into the Russian army. We are voting for these all-encompassing sanctions against the people of Cuba that starve them, kill them, ruin their lives, because some Cubans have joined the Russian military. So we are voting for collective punishment. Like he said, this is not directed against the people of Cuba. How is voting for the embargo possibly not directed against the people of Cuba? Obviously, they were pressured into doing this.
Okay, so from an emotional perspective, I do get where BadEmpanada is coming from. You could argue that it was a bad move from a moral perspective, supporting the blockade of Cuba. But okay, here's the thing. Even if you hate the Ukrainian government, that's still not the reason to be anti-Ukraine. Because if you are pro-peace, if you want the war to stop, the war in Ukraine to stop, then you should realize that there is literally one person standing in the way of peace, and that's Vladimir Putin. So Zelensky said that he would be fine with just freezing the battlefield. That's what the US suggested, what the Trump administration suggested. And any reasonable deal that both sides could accept that wouldn't include Ukraine just giving it its fortress belt that it spent years doing and millions of dollars investing into it. And of course, you are not supposed to give your fortress belt to your enemy. That's just making the risk of potential war higher. So my point is, any normal peace deal that both sides could realistically accept is currently being rejected by Vladimir Putin. And the only way to get Russia to agree is to inflict harm, kill enough of their soldiers. So yeah, and the Ukrainian government is the only entity able to do it currently. Well, given the fact that the US is actually a very unreliable ally for Europe, and I'm from Europe, from Eastern Europe, and I realize I have to view things pragmatically and not emotionally like most people when it comes to geopolitics. Even if you hate the Ukrainian government, Ukraine is currently the second most powerful military in Europe after Russia. And if the US is unwilling to protect Europe from Russia, then who is going to do it? Well, the best candidate is Ukraine in collaboration with Western countries, pro-Western countries giving it money. Ukraine can then use the knowledge it gained on the battlefield in order to teach instructors across Europe how to fight Russia, and in doing so, Ukraine can actually make the chances of some large-scale war between Russia and Europe decrease. Okay, but let us continue. So BadEmpanada goes on to say that Cuba actually has a long history of helping Ukraine, sending its doctors to Ukraine. And that is something that is very admirable. I do think that Cuba did actually a lot of good things when you look at its history. It fought colonialism all around the world. It's helping Ukraine. But here's the thing. So Ukraine voting on something in the UN does not really change the situation on the ground, which is that US is conducting a blockade of Cuba. And if we are going to really put a lot of significance on how countries vote in the UN, then we should also just observe the fact that during the last UN vote on the Russian aggression in Ukraine, the three countries that didn't condemn Russian aggression of Ukraine were Russia, US, and Israel, and also some other countries. But yeah, Israel, a country that is often seen as being a Western ally, actually voted against condemning Russian aggression of Ukraine. And even more bizarrely, the Trump administration as well, while Serbia, a country that's historically very pro-Russian, actually voted to condemn the invasion. So I'm just saying, I don't think that BadEmpanada actually realizes how pro-Israel Putin is in some aspects and how close the relationship is, while at the same time Russia and Israel are enemies because of Iran, or you could say Russian ally is the main enemy of Israel, but the two countries actually have a very good relationship. Okay, that's actually all I wanted to say in this video, and don't forget to like, share and subscribe.